Thomas and Friends, the hit era rewritten. Diesel's Prevail, Part 2. After Diesel revealed the day he wanted his plan to be done, the day soon came. It was Christmas Day. But it was too warm for any snow, and things were frosty. "I feel frozen," said Diesel. "Same here," replied his friends. But Molly and Rosie couldn't say the same. Their shed was full of heaters. "Why don't we let the Diesels rest in here for a little? They don't get as much warmth as we do," said Molly. "I don't see why not," replied Rosie, and they wished around the bend and came to a stop. Good morning, everyone," said Rosie. "If you guys want, you're free to sleep in the shed. It has heaters," said Molly hysterically. The Diesels were all fired up inside after hearing that. Molly and Rosie left to help set up Knapford Station. Later that day, Diesel and his friends were conversating. "Okay, we haven't done anything in the last week. Today we have to do some damage," said Diesel sternly. His driver started coughing out smoke. "You all right, sir?" asked Diesel's friend. His driver nodded. "It's Christmas. Why do we need this plan done today? Want to know?" His friends oiled in excitement. Diesel took a deep, long breath and said, "You know, Christmas is a jolly time of the year. We can ruin it and make everyone feel bad, and we can fill this island full of Diesels to lead the others to the scrap heap where they belong." "But what does that have to do with Christmas?" "Because that's when they're all together." Later that day, Molly and Rosie came back to find that Diesel and his friends left. "Where could they be?" cried Molly. Molly and Rosie didn't know that they were at Knapford Station, where all the decorations were. They were in vans and cars and were ready to be put onto Knapford. But Diesel and his friends had other ideas. They took them to a gorge and shoved them over a broken track, and they fell into the ravine below. Diesel and his friends watched as they fell. They soon left. That night at Knapford, all the engines gathered, thinking the lights and stringers were up, but they weren't. And the workmen couldn't find the cars. Sir Topham Hatt arrived in Spencer. "Where are the stringers and streamers, the lights and the ornaments?" asked Sir Topham Hatt. "I don't know," said Rosie. "I delivered them this morning." Diesel purred up. He left his friends at the yard. He blended in with the night and couldn't be seen by anyone. His driver lit a match and planted an explosive. It ticked, it popped, and it crackled. "Run!" cried Edward. "An explosive is next to the station." All of the engines got fired up as quick as possible. Thomas reversed as he was very alarmed. Diesel's driver ran to reverse Diesel, but he slipped and fell. "Thomas, stop!" cried Diesel. But Thomas wasn't listening and rammed his driver and fireman off the footplate, and they ran over the yard at full speed. "Help!" cried Diesel. "Is that Diesel? Diesel, we're coming!" one of his friends cried, and they raced after them at full speed. They raced down the main line with Diesel's friends close behind. They raced around a tight bend and flew from under the tunnel. They headed straight for Tidmouth. Diesel's friends were right behind, but they were not quick enough and gave up. Diesel tried to apply his brakes, but it was no use. They flew into the turntable and rammed into the sheds. The shed's walls and roofs fell down, and the tracks had been crushed. Thomas and Diesel felt terrible. "Thomas!" cried Diesel. "How could you?" "Diesel, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were there," said Thomas solemnly. But it was no use for their apologies, as Sir Topham had arrived in Spencer, very cross with the both of them. "Diesel, you have been caught in the act. What do you think you were doing?" said Sir Topham Hatt. He was very cross. "And you, Thomas, what do you think you were doing? Going full speed in reverse. You two combined have been very bad, both of you making stupid decisions. And where's your guys' drivers?" "They got knocked off the footplate," they said. Thomas's driver and fireman soon arrived, and Molly and Rosie. "Are you okay, Thomas and Diesel?" asked Molly. "Yes," they said in unison. "What were you doing there anyway, Diesel?" "I wanted to see the lights." Edward wished up. Sir, we found something," he said unhappily. And they found something indeed. What they found was Diesel's driver laid on the ground with no sign of him breathing. The engines, Sir Topham Hatt and its friends knew that it would be horrible for Diesel for the news to be broken to him. Later that night, Diesel was shunted into a siding at the yard because he was so cold and tired he didn't know what to do. "What happened to my driver?" asked Diesel. He got taken in." "To jail!" cried Diesel. No, to the hospital," his friend said devastatedly. Diesel was devastated. "This is the worst Christmas I've ever had." He's a bad guy, Mr. Diesel, but deep down he's warm-hearted. He'll growl and he'll purr all around the empty yard, Mr. Diesel. He has some friends that'll help him get to his great desire. He's a monster, Mr. Diesel. His heart is small, but there. His exhausts are full of spiders, and there's garlic in his soul, Mr. Diesel. It could be worse, but at least he cares a bit. Roll the credits.
A Thomas the Tank Engine fan production.